Hey, everybody. Welcome to another live. Thanks so much for tuning in. We got a lot to go over this week, but this week we're going to focus on good news. AI has a lot of things that will really benefit humanity. And sometimes we focus on the things that are going to be a challenge with it, right? But this week we're going to focus on stuff that is going to really benefit the world. And first up, we've got uh, a guy who invented and it was approved by uh, the FDA a few years ago for diagnosing diabetic retinopathy because a lot of people have this. I think, I don't remember the exact statistic, but it's close to 30% of adults in the United States here have diabetes. And one of the side effects of diabetes is you can lose your eyesight because it affects your retinas over time if your blood sugar isn't properly maintained. And they call that diabetic retinopathy. But this guy, who is a University of Iowa professor, developed a breakthrough AI system for performing eye exams. It's called IDXDR. The system can determine whether a test taker has diabetic retinopathy. Um, Only 15% of people who have this disease get diagnosed each year. So that means 85% of people that have this and eventually may lose their eyesight are not even diagnosed yet. So that's pretty serious, right? So this is one way in which AI is really a huge benefit. And we're going to talk about more. But before we go to the next one, let's just remember why I started the AI guide. And the reason why is to help young people prepare for the wave of AI that's coming, to help you pivot to an AI safe career. And one of the ways that we do that is if you click the link below, you'll find free resources. If you look at the resource, everything in the resource is free. And if you go through the process, you'll be given the opportunity to take my beta course, totally free again for beta participants, to take it and give us feedback on what you think about it. But the whole course is designed to help you change your career from something that could be affected by AI or is likely to be affected by AI to something that will be relatively AI safe. And the last of our topics today, we're going to talk more about this, but I wanted to get it out up front, as well as urge you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter, all of which we'll be updating soon. So these lives that we just started last week will be every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time here in the US. And we're going to break down the news and give you context for it. So the context for the piece we just did is that AI is going to rapidly penetrate the medical field and it's going to be extremely beneficial to help diagnose diseases that have not been diagnosed yet in patients and help you live a longer, healthier life. And at the end, we're going to give job tips relative to everything that we've talked about today. So the next one is that we talked about one breakthrough by NASA last week. We're going to talk about another because NASA develops and releases technology that helps all aspects of your life. And most people are totally unaware of this. So the money that is spent by the federal government from your taxes to NASA is extremely beneficial to humankind, not only here in the US, but globally, because NASA invents cutting edge technology that they then allow people to license and create amazing companies from. So that's one possibility for a career, right? You can look at NASA's website for technology that's available to license right now today, and then start your own company and commercialize one of these technologies. But this particular technology from NASA is called ATD, which is Advanced Technology Demonstration Project to make air traffic control smoother and more efficient. So if you've flown, especially before COVID, but back BC, as I call it, um, delays in air travel were common, right? You would either get on the plane and then sit at the gate, or you would pull away from the gate and sit on the runway for like 30 minutes waiting to take off at one of the busier airports. Or you would have to circle an airport and wait to land because it was overloaded with traffic. Well, air traffic is only going to grow, and it's going to continue to grow significantly. Why? Because there's complete breakthroughs in air traffic coming. We're not going to cover that today. We did talk about it last week. You can go back and watch last week's video on the live from last week to learn more about that, but we're not going to get into that today because it's too big a topic. But this advanced technology demonstration for air traffic did a couple of things. So, first of all, it picked a couple of airports, and specifically, they picked the Charlotte, North Carolina airport and one of the two major airports in Dallas, Texas, Love Field, to demonstrate this project. But this project had three different aspects to it. And the first aspect is from gate to takeoff, trying to make that smoother and faster. So what the first piece of the software does is tell airlines who use it, and American Airlines and others are using it here in the US already. And it'll get used everywhere. But the first piece is it tells an airline exactly what time all of their flights can leave the gate and take off with virtually zero wait. So when they're scheduling their planes, they know exactly where to slot all of their flights, because typically at a major hub airport for an airline, they have all the flights come in close together so that people can change planes, and then all the flights go back out pretty close together. And that can cause major delays, right? But this new software helps smooth that out and make it very predictable. So that's the first thing, is taxi and takeoff. The second is flying. And of course, a lot of times a plane is given a slot in a corridor and they have to stay in that corridor and they can't deviate from it unless there's bad weather. And then they'll let planes fly around, but that disrupts the nationwide airflow. So, with roughly 5,000 flights a day taking off here in the United States and tens of thousands globally, bad weather can produce system-wide ripple effects. And this software, what it does is allow them to pick. No, it knows the weather ahead of time and allows a departing aircraft to pick an alternate route that will be extremely efficient and slot it right into the airflow so that it eliminates weather delays. So part one eliminated taxi and takeoff delays of the software. Part two eliminates delays caused by weather typically, or overscheduling en route. And then the third piece, as you might guess, is landing planes. And the software also slots planes in to help them land very quickly without having to circle airports or slowing down on the flight on the way, which planes commonly do, so that they can maintain their slot. And this software as a whole makes air traffic much much more efficient. So the testing phase is over. The FAA has approved it. It's starting to roll out to airlines. And just to give you an idea of what this software will do, um, it's pretty amazing. Sorry. Um, so just on the test, because there is software that has to be added to each plane, right? To use this system. They added it to 84 aircrafts. It saved 7,000 gallons of jet fuel, 24 hours of delayed time, and reduced emissions equivalent to planting over 1,000 trees. So that is one test, one very small test. Big, big benefits. As that rolls out system wide, the benefits are going to be huge, really huge for making air traffic more efficient. So, next up, and knowing that we only have half an hour, by the way, you can leave chat comments if you want to, and I'll try to respond to those at the end. This article is from The Guardian. So here's what it says. AI has been identified as one of the top 3 emerging technologies in the field of conservation. And this is helping to protect endangered species throughout the world. So this is more good news, right? AI is being used, specifically machine learning, to process systems that already existed, which are automatic photo cameras put around very large areas that are either national parks or wildlife refuges and so forth. And it's not practical for humans to sort through the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of images generated by these field cameras. The humans end up being years and years behind. So here are some examples for how AI is being used to preserve animals right now. In Zambia, in one of their national parks, stopping poachers. In Brazil, Brazil has already lost 15% of its surface water in the entire country. Now, Brazil is one of the largest countries in the world. I think it's 15 million square miles or something like that. But in geography, it's one of the biggest countries in the entire world. And there is no practical way for a human being to assess the state of water on the surface of the country of Brazil. It's way too large, but using AI, you can monitor millions of images from satellites, and they have determined that Brazil has already lost 15% of its surface water due to human changes, climate change, and other things. Think of what that means, that 15% of the fresh water in Brazil, one of the most populous countries in the world, has disappeared. The long-term effects of this are going to be serious, and particularly with regard to the largest rainforest in the world, the Amazon jungle. Another instance, finding whales. Whales, just to give you an idea of how vast the ocean is, it covers 2/3 of the Earth's surface, right? Still today in 2022, with all of our technology, only 5% of the underground surface of the ocean has been mapped so far. The underwater surface, sorry. 5%, 95% unmapped. It's insane. And the ocean is so vast that the only way that they are finding to efficiently track whales is using AI, because there's no way to have enough people to do it. So that's example 3. Stopping poachers, tracking water loss, finding whales. Example 4, protecting koalas in Australia. Koalas are everywhere in Australia, a very um, dispersed population. And for humans to try to track koala population is very, very difficult, if not completely impractical. So they're using AI now to track the koala population and make sure that koalas aren't being threatened more than they already are by urbanization, right? Every time the cities are expanded or built, it drives wildlife out of their native habitats, and that includes koalas. Um, and then in the jungles, they use cameras that are set up that automatically capture animals, right, to survey the animal populations. But again, we're talking thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands to millions of photographs. They use AI to automatically recognize and count species because they've already found that the AI is 96% accurate, not only in identifying the species of animal that appears in each of these photographs that are coming in at thousands a day, but also AI is sophisticated enough that it can track individual animals, which allows you to count the species. So this is a complete breakthrough, and this is brand new. It was not possible to do this before in a jungle environment. So this is brand new. So another great example of how AI is currently being used for good today that you don't hear much about, and that's why the AI Guide exists, to bring all this stuff out into the open and keep you advised about it. Um, next, breakthrough news days old. AI has beaten 8 world champions at bridge, a game in which human supremacy was paramount until this year. Um, so Uh, in contrast to Chess and Go, it says, in both of which, and by the way, this is The Guardian again, so this is 2 articles from The Guardian. In AIs had already beaten human champions in Chess and Go. A player has a single opponent at a time, and both are in possession of all the information they need. Bridge does not work that way. In Bridge, information is distributed. You need to get information to be able to win in bridge from other players. So it's a collaborative game, and the AI was proven to play collaboratively. What we've seen represents a fundamental, important advance in the state of AI systems, says Stephen Muggleton, professor of machine learning at Imperial College London. By the way, AI is global, right? AI is already everywhere. AI will affect the globe equally. AI doesn't care where you live, what race you are, what religion you are, what gender you are. It is small d democratic in that it affects everyone equally. Um, uh, so they are now calling this a new generation AI. And by the way, this was announced literally days ago. The game of bridge relies on communication between partners. Uh, right now, explainability is a hot topic in AI. Most of what the general public has heard in recent years about AI is black box systems, meaning that the researchers do not understand how the algorithms make the decisions they make. The reason this is a breakthrough is because this is the first instance of what they call a white box or neurosymbolic approach to AI, meaning you understand how the algorithm works. This is a major fundamental breakthrough in AI. Brand new, and it's a game changer for AI going forward. Um, so the researchers say explainability is going to really transform the way AI works, because not being able to tell people how an AI works does not work in society today. People want to know how AI works and understand its behavior, and that this behavior is transparent and legible to others. And this is critical for eventually putting AI in charge of human necessities like power, water, things like this. You absolutely must understand how the AI is working. So this is a huge breakthrough. And then finally, this is where I said we're going to get to talk about jobs and pivoting your career. So AI adoption is accelerating, and this is an article from CNBC. Certainly the leader in business news here in the U.S. And possibly globally, but that's irrelevant. AI adoption is accelerating. The overall market for AI is expected to be 190 billion by 2025. By 2030, AI technology will add 15.7 trillion to global gross domestic product. AI is everywhere, whether we're aware of it or not. In most cases, we are not. That's why I started the AI Guide. From displacement and hunger to infectious disease outbreaks and climate change, this technology has the potential to help us tackle some of the toughest global challenges. In fact, AI could enable the accomplishment of 134 out of 169 of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. This article goes on to say AI literacy is mandatory for the workforce of the future. And this is what I have said on every single video since the start of this year. You must understand AI. You must understand how AI works. You do not have to be a programmer, but you all will be using AI at work within a few short years. And this article confirms that. So let's put what this article just said into perspective, because it's really important. How many trillion-dollar industries are there in the United States right now? 4. Only 4. And the U.S. has 22% of global gross domestic product, almost a quarter. And there's only 4 trillion-dollar industries right now. And I don't know if you know this, but this is part of the work I do at my day job, is economics, forecasting, and business statistics and things. It's a part of my job. So what are these $4 trillion industries here in the United States? Real estate, number one, 1.9 trillion a year of GDP. State and local government. Why? Because every city, town, and state has a government. Big money, all have employees, all generate revenue, all fix your roads, provide schools, do parks, a lot of different things. 1.3 trillion in economic activity a year. Finance and insurance. This is banks and insurance, 1.2 trillion a year. And healthcare, as you might guess, is a huge one, 1.1 trillion a year. So Did you catch that? The biggest industry I said was $1.9 trillion. And by 2030, when I'm telling you the world is going to be profoundly different because of AI, 15.7 trillion global economic impact. That gives you an idea that AI is going to dominate everything in our world, everything. And this is why I started the AI Guide. This is why I urge you to stay tuned to what's going on weekly in AI. It's why we provide free resources. Click the link below. It is why we provide this beta course. Get the resource, check it out, go through the sequence, and at the end, you'll be invited to join the beta course. All free. All this stuff is totally free. I'm trying to help here, folks. Help you pivot to an AI safe career, because if AI is going to be basically the largest global economic engine by 2030, it affects everything every person does by then. So, but today I wanted to show you how powerful a force for good AI is, because it is. It's a very, very powerful force for good. It can also be a very, very powerful force for ill. And our goal here is to prepare you for that part of it. So thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week on our next live. Check us out, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Get my book, The Beginner's Guide to AI, A Brief History and Current AI Impact on 10 Different Industries. It's on Amazon. Dirt cheap, quick read, 3 hours, you've read the whole book. This is not a burden to get you up to speed on AI. So thanks so much.